It's time to accelerate. Hey friends, this is Andy. Welcome to episode 634 of Accelerate, the sales podcast of record. I'm honored to be joined on the show again for the second time by my guest, Adam Honig, CEO of Spiro. When Adam was first on Accelerate, his company's product had just been introduced, and the product and the market have evolved since that time. And Spiro has evolved from an individual personal sales assistant into a full-fledged CRM tool. But it's still focused on the rep, and it uses technology to show sales reps what their most important and urgent priorities are, what actions are needed. And really kind of cool is that it's also a learning tool that learns from the reps' preferences, understands the reps' data to help them make better decisions, and encourage the rep to play to their strengths. So really the tech context of the conversation are tools like this that are really focused on helping the reps more efficient and become more efficient and effective. Is this really the future of sales tools as opposed to tools that are really geared for management reporting of what's going on? So we'll talk with Adam to see if that's the case. I really look forward to it. So if you would like to see the show notes for this episode, go to andypaul.com/631. Now, before we jump into my conversation with Adam, let me say that I often hear from listeners who are looking for a new sales challenge. And I tell them one of the most important elements to their career success is aligning themselves with the right company. One that develops its employees, values their customers, and has a portfolio of leading products, category leading products that can compete with anyone in their market. So with its recent acquisition of Level 3, the new CenturyLink has become a world leader in providing many of those services, including cloud, security, real-time communications, and managed services. So if you're a top sales producer and you're looking to challenge yourself in order to take your career to the next level, then visit CenturyLink.com/accelerate. That's CenturyLink.com/accelerate, and see if the CenturyLink is the right step for you and your career. All right, let's get to it. Adam Honig, welcome back to Accelerate.
Thanks, Andy. It's great to be back.
It's great to have you back. So I think if listeners are paying attention to our first interview almost 2 years ago, we were talking about one of the things that was really interesting was the fact that you do a lot of drone photography, and you and I were talking about this before you come on the air, that it's getting harder and harder to do that. But you're still doing some of that?
Oh yeah. I was I've been to Hawaii with my drone. In the past year or so, I was out in Bosnia in the Balkans, and it was the site of the Winter Olympics in the '80s at some point. So we flew the drone down the bobsled track. Yeah, which is really cool. Which is a complete ruin today, unfortunately, because of the big war they had. But it was a great scene to fly it around there. So yeah, still loving the drone. Can't get that view from anywhere else except when you're like 400 feet up in the air.
And is it easy to travel with it?
Yeah, it's really crazy because I was traveling with my son who is a young boy, and he's got this little matchbox thing that shoots a car out quickly.
Yeah,
and they confiscated that because it looked too much like a gun. But my drone with all these propellers, they were like, "Yeah, go right on, sir. Don't mind us." So yeah, he was very upset, my son too.
Well, I can imagine. Yeah. I mean, have you ever had anything confiscated at security? It's infuriating.
Yes.
I mean, I had for years, I traveled with, I run quite a lot, and I had one of these sticks where you can roll out your calf muscles, and it's 8 inches long or something like that. And I'd carried it around literally for years with me. And one time going through JFK, JetBlue Terminal 5, which my primary airline, and TSA decided that day was a weapon.
Yep. Wow.
And I'm like, try logic, making logic with them. This may be the 100th time I've come through this particular security point with that in my luggage. Yeah, they didn't care. All right. Well, good. Well, great to have you back on the show. So let me ask you a question that I usually start all the interviews with. We started a different one this time, but is in your mind, what's the single biggest challenge facing sales reps today?
Well, I think that sales reps today have a lot of activities going on all at the same time, demanding their attention. Whether it's leads are coming in, or prospects that they're pushing through the pipeline, or active, customer relationships that they need to manage, or internal reporting of their families, there's just so much stuff going on that how do you stay very, very focused on the activities that are going to make, your sales happen, you money, and the company grow. And I find that, in talking with a lot of people to be something that people are constantly concerned about?
Well, I do think it's one of the big challenges. I'd say it's probably the most common answer I get to that question is, and I'll put it in different terms, is people saying overwhelm.
Yep.
Right? That reps are overwhelmed. I mean, is there really a cure for that? I mean, it's because you talked about, it's not just business. I mean, everything's happening sort of concurrently, right? I mean, business, personal, everything overlaps. Diverse information sources that are bombarding us, notifications from this and that. How do we deal with that? I mean, in a work environment, especially in sales, how do we get people focused?
Right. Well, I think that there's behavioral things that people can do in order to set their day and have a priority and get up and really have some quiet time to know what you're trying to achieve in the week, in the month, in the quarter. And I'm a big believer in that sort of visualization for the team. But I think when this is a little bit where my business is focused, is I think that we need to turn the tables on the technology a little bit. Instead of the technology kind of causing everything to be faster and coming at us more, I think we need to use the technology to tame that and to organize it and make it so that you're the master of what's going on, not the other way. So I know that's a little bit abstract, but that's part of what Spiro is kind of about, is all of these different signals that you as a human being are receiving. How do we get the machine to understand what those are so that it can help you understand what you should be doing about it?
All right. So great way to sort of move into the conversation is about Spiro, but we're going to come back to that because I think that's a bigger topic, right? I mean, because it's not just having to do with sales, and Spiro sort of more specifically focuses sort of on that side of things. But that's a really interesting thought. All right. So before I get lost in thought and start daydreaming in the middle of the podcast, it's been a while since we've been on the show. So tell people what Spiro is and what you do.
Sure.
Because it's changed quite a bit since the last time you and I spoke.
It has. So we started Spiro as really being what we called a personal sales assistant, something that would help individual salespeople manage their days, know what to do, whether it was calling or emailing or following up with somebody to move deals forward. And it was really interesting. We've had about 20,000 salespeople using the personal sales assistant, and we kept hearing more and more from them that they wanted Spiro to be really a full CRM, and that the idea that there could be a CRM that acted on their behalf for them, and I don't mean by talking to customers or anything like that. I mean by updating data and creating records and stuff like that in the system would be of a lot of value. And specifically, we've kind of migrated into a patch of customers and prospects who are not typically using CRM because they felt like using CRM was something that their sales teams would never really adopt. And so they stopped that process of putting sales automation in place. So today, what we offer
and that's very interesting. So what size companies are those?
We after we launched Spiro, the full CRM product, we got an inbound call from a very small company called New York Life. Yeah. And New York Life happened to be a customer of mine in the past, and we actually implemented Siebel for them at one point, and then replaced that with Salesforce. And so I was like, well, I know New York Life. You guys have got Salesforce now. And they're like, no, that's a different division. We have 1,100 field reps who have no CRM at New York Life. And I was just blown away by that was even possible. And I said to them, but surely corporate wants you to use Salesforce. And they said, well, we are on the roadmap. In 2022, we'll be on Salesforce. So our customers range from smaller companies. Shout out to the Miami Hot Springs company. If anybody's in South Florida and they need a hot tub or anything like that, that's one of our great customers, all the way up to larger enterprises and divisions of publicly traded companies that just, for whatever reason, never went on to a CRM platform.
Well, it's really so funny you bring that story up, because I've talked about this on the show before. Of examples of companies that have been in business for a long time. Give an example: one company had like 100 salespeople that. They've been in business for 100 years, and their strategic initiative for 2017 was to put in a CRM system. And people were sort of flabbergasted by this because they presume that everybody has one, right? That's just sort of the mythology that's around that everybody's got a CRM system.
Well, I was talking with the head of sales for one of our customers, and he said, at my last company, we had Salesforce, and I would never subject my team to that here. And I was like, oh, okay. And I think it's a problem because people perceive rightly, in a lot of cases, CRM as being extra work for the sales team that takes away from selling time. And they're just like, hey, it's just not worth it for us. And
command and control.
Right. Although they don't usually object, or the sales reps themselves might object to the command and control. The leaders often don't.
Right.
But I think the smart ones see that if they're going to be doing things that disturb the culture of the sales team, that's going to have a negative impact on sales.
Now, when you first got started, I mean, one of your thoughts was that, hey, this is not really an app that's being bought by enterprise basis, that this is, hey, we're going to seed this and get a bunch of people sort of guerrilla marketing into individuals, and hopefully the company wakes up one day and half their sales team is using Spiro. Are you still using that approach, or are you actually doing enterprise sales?
We're doing more enterprise sales now, and I'll tell you that the approach that we took, it was very promising, but it ran into one major roadblock, which is the Salesforce admin community. Mm-hmm. And I know it sounds crazy. So we built Spiro as a personal sales assistant. It needed to suck the data in from somewhere to know what your deals were, and so we built it on Salesforce. They're the biggest CRM,
sure.
No big deal. And then we had 15 individual sales reps at Tableau Software using Spiro with Salesforce. Great. How exciting. Let's get a hold of sales ops and, talk to them about why they're doing this and what the benefits are. No problem. Great conversation with sales ops. And then they were like, great, well, we're going to put it in the plan. And why don't we speak again in 6 months and we'll see how we're doing on our plan. And I'm like, what? and the whole Salesforce ecosystem, which is an amazing thing that they've developed and built, there's so much in there that it's just very competitive to get whatever you're doing, on the agenda in the top 3 priorities.
Sure.
For a company with Salesforce. And there's so many things that they're trying to fix and stuff like that. It was a very slow sale there versus running into these companies that don't have CRM, and we could show them the benefit of how they basically could be guaranteed CRM adoption by using a tool like Spiro, and they would move very, very quickly.
So it's standalone.
Yep, totally standalone. No other CRM required.
So let's dive in that for a little bit of time. So again, there's this sort of mythology built up that Salesforce is everywhere and omniscient, but interestingly, in the CRM space, not just you, I mean, if you look at the guests I've had on the show over the last 2 years, a lot of CEOs of new companies building CRM systems. And interestingly, you'd think, well, why are they doing that? Right? And on one hand, say, well, that doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. But clearly, there's opportunity there.
Well, I mean, if you look at the industry analyst reports, the Forresters and the Gartners and these kind of guys, the Salesforce is by and large the biggest market share, but it's right around 20%. Mm-hmm. And the biggest, on the pie chart is people who have nothing or some homegrown application.
Right.
And so I think there's a lot of opportunity in CRM and a lot of room for innovation. And Salesforce, great company, started off focusing on sales, hence Salesforce. Today, I mean, they're focused on really being an enterprise application, not just for the sales team. And so a lot of their innovation comes in different areas, not in sales. And I think that's opened up the door for more specialized firms to come out with great innovative products.
Now, you talk about Spiro being a proactive CRM. So tell us what that means.
Sure. Well, sort of the dream is that, salespeople would sell and then Spiro would do everything else that's required for them. I mean, that's really what we want. So serving up information as you need it, capturing information as you're going along so that you can just go through your workday. So I'll give you a great example. So one of the things that Spiro does is it understands what's going on in your email. And based upon the context of the email, it's going to suggest to you, and in some cases just do things for you, like create contact records for you. If you and I have 3 emails back and forth and we're using certain language, it's just going to write a contact record for Andy Paul. It's going to find your phone number. It's going to associate all of our past calendar appointments and conversations and stuff like that together, so that the sales rep, if he ever needs to look at that, it's all set for him there.
Now, is that rule-based, or is that the user sets, or is that just part of your algorithm that you have?
That's just part of how it works. So we're using a AI technology based on natural language processing that understands sales conversations. And by the way, the personal sales assistant product, the first product we brought to the market, having 20,000 users on it, we gathered tons of data about what the language that salespeople use with prospects and how prospects respond to that, to create the model to say, well, when Andy responds a certain way, Spiro's going to say, hey, let's add him into our pipelines. Let's automatically create an opportunity for him, so that, because we think that there's a deal going on here. Likewise, when I send you a proposal, Spiro is going to know that that happened and automatically change the sales stage to proposed. So you don't even have to go in and do those kind of things in the application.
And I presume you're using machine learning then to be able to continuously educate Spiro about, hey, these are new words that you should be looking for in conversations and so on.
Yep. Oh, absolutely. So and by the way, so we offer it in French as well as English today, because we have quite a few customers in Quebec who said to us that they really love that feature and they want to see it working in French. So yes, so it's an algorithm that learns and understands the different language that's used in the emails to update and change things in itself. In a way, it's kind of like the self-driving cars of CRM, if that makes any sense.
You've got LiDAR.
Yeah, I don't know. It's so hard. It's very awkward to say Spiro updates itself. Like, what does that mean? But but it's really what it does. And so again, if you think about all those Friday afternoons that you spent updating your forecast as a sales rep, just imagine that you don't have to do that anymore. And just imagine as a sales leader, it actually does all of that for you, and then applies a layer of intelligence onto it. So if you have an opportunity with a prospect and you actually haven't reached out to them in 2 weeks, Spiro marks it as stalled because there's nothing going on there. Now, it's a little bit more complicated than that, because you might have a reminder set or an appointment coming up in 2 months, or your sales cycle might be 3 years long, and it doesn't matter. So it factors all of that in, but it automatically categorizes the deals in different buckets. So when you're sitting down to go through everything, you understand, at a glance, which deals you need to focus on with your manager.
Right. Now, when you first were coming out with Spiro, it was a mobile platform, so now it's both mobile and online?
Yep. We have a great mobile app. The majority of our customers have field sales teams where they take heavy advantage of the mobile platform that we have. We have a web has built-in VoIP calling in it. So sales teams can literally, sit at their laptop and make call after call that Spiro's recommending that they do. And that's a really big advantage, because there's a lot of wasted time between calls often if you're not really organized about how you're going to do things.
Right.
And Spiro makes all of that just happen for you.
And does it work with any email client?
Well, not any. I'm sorry to say that we still don't have Lotus Note support, and I know my brothers at Ricoh, the copier manufacturers, are very upset about that. They're still on Lotus Notes. Crazy, but true.
They're still on Lotus Notes, okay.
They're still on Lotus Notes. They're such a big company. But at any rate, so we support Gmail, Exchange, Office 365, any IMAP, any modern email system. We support for sure, as well as Android and iPhone and any sort of modern browser as well.
Yeah. Well, and you talked about sitting there in your office on Friday afternoon, not having to update your records, and to me, it seems like when we look at sort of the promise of artificial intelligence, AI, in sales, most people sort of try to end game and say, "Oh gosh, it's going to replace me," but it's really not that. It's really doing what you talked about. It's, how do we use intelligence to handle the repetitive tasks which consume selling time?
Right. And I mean, I envision a world where Spiro can help more and more functions. So if let's say you're prospecting and you're trying to get an email response from from a prospect, and you're not, and you're going through the different techniques that you use to try to get a response. Maybe Spiro will just send you an email saying, "Hey, try this," instead. And it can start making suggestions about different approaches based on what it's seeing you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Or, maybe you can say, Spiro will see an email to you saying, "Hey, Andy, it sounds great. Can we talk next week?" And Spiro can just take over the conversation and say, "Yeah, Tuesday at 4 is good for a call. Can I set it up?" And just start to help you with all of those things. But I don't think it'll ever replace the direct connection that people have when they buy, because the trust is such an important factor in why people buy. And I don't think, I mean, maybe, in the future when you can't even tell if I'm a robot or not, it'll happen. But I just have trouble seeing that.
I might be able to tell when I see you, but yeah, over the phone, perhaps not. So,
Right.
Yeah. So what you're really talking about is taking over that conversation is really then sort of integrating bot technology, our AI-driven bot technology that could, pick up certain elements of the conversation to help with certain administrative tasks and so on.
Yeah, absolutely. And just make it. And the other thing that's really, underlying this as well is not just updating the data, but because the data is updated in more of a real-time fashion, you can make better decisions in sales about it. So if you're getting inbound emails from certain clients but not others, you have a tendency as a salesperson to gravitate to the people who are responding, right?
Mm-hmm.
But is that really the best course of action in the moment? Is that, $20,000 deal worth chasing down to go after versus really spending a little bit more time on the bigger deal? Like, how do you make that trade-off in real time without the right data underneath it? And I think, as smart as we all are, I'm sure that we're not always optimizing on that basis. And the machine can do that. That's what it's designed to do. It's not designed to build rapport, tell jokes, or, answer unstructured questions, but doing that really good.
Well, but the question in that case, when it's making decisions about what you should do in certain situations, you said it's got the data. And this is sort of an interesting point for me because I see data being misused oftentimes in sales management. Is it using that particular user's data or a broader spectrum of data?
Right now, the way that we've built Spiro is it's using the user's data.
Which I think is the right answer, by the way.
Well, I think there are trade-offs. And I think, further on the product roadmap, we're looking at different options because, if you're managing a sales team, there's sales reps who are probably performing better than others. And it might be useful for the algorithm to understand the differences between the high-performing reps and the lower-performing reps to make suggestions. So that's part of the future vision for the product, but it's, what's working for the higher performing reps might not work for the lower performing reps anyway.
Exactly. And I think that's sort of the issue is it's like, how do we deal with that issue, which is that, because I see lots of sales teams that, our training this week consists of, hey, here's how John, number one performer, this is how he does it. Everybody be just like him. And what we're talking about are individuals that can't execute what John does the way John does.
Mm-hmm. So right now, Spiro encourages you to play to your strengths. So if you're a sales rep who closes a higher rate of smaller deals, that's what Spiro prioritizes on. If you're more of an elephant hunter, and that's kind of the direction that you're having success at, Spiro goes that way. So because it learns what your sales cycle is, what your deal size is, and all these things as you use it to make those recommendations. So I do think it would be interesting when we have enough data to look at the correlation across the group, but we're just not there yet.
Yeah, to me, the problem with some of those correlations are that maybe they're not selling the exact same size deals, as you talked about, to the same size customers with a different set of stakeholders and decision makers. The variables are so different that you can't really normalize that across 6 or 7 different people because everything is unique.
Yep, right. Your territory is Fairfield County, New York. Whoa, good for you. Mine
Yeah.
is Utah. Totally different customer base. I mean,
Yeah,
totally different situation.
or Southeast Utah, where there are no cities. I mean, it's
Yeah, the
right, no
desert
customers,
territory.
desert territory.
That's the territory you put that rep in. That you're like, I'm sorry, Greg, you have the desert territory this year.
That's right. I hope you like mountain biking because that's how you're going to get to your customers. But that's why I see as sort of the problem is we create these spurious correlations oftentimes in the data that in the absence of other variables you don't really know why they're occurring.
Right. So I think it's very important for AI in particular to take it one step at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we also focus on areas that a false negative is only going to have a minor impact. And so what I mean by that is we're, one of the things that Spiro is doing is making these call recommendations,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we're putting them in an order that Spiro thinks is important. But you as a sales rep can explicitly say, no, I know that one's not important, and you can dismiss it. And that then teaches Spiro something about that. It doesn't always know exactly why, but it learns over time about that. And so that way, if we're wrong, the cost of being wrong in that way is very light. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. But you haven't trained Spiro to say, Andy, I really think that you really want to do this.
No, that's like a bug if that happens. It's like it's telling me to call the same guy over and over again.
You need that voice thing, sort of like your navigation system. I keep waiting for my nav system when I ignore their directions to go, are you sure you didn't want to turn right there? But
I think life could really benefit from that feature.
Yeah. So what you're really talking about, I mean, to me, that's sort of like, telling you who to call and so on is sort of predictive. It seems like another avenue I'm seeing companies in the AI space go down in sales is sort of what some people call nudging, right? Is
Mm-hmm.
sort of telling you what to say in real time. I mean, how do you see that evolving?
Well, I think it's really cool. And if there was a way for Spiro to listen in on the conversation and provide real-time feedback, that worked well, that'd be awesome. I don't think the technology is there. And I think that the likelihood of wrong advice going out is pretty high. Mm-hmm. So I'm not really, that's not where we're focused right now. And if you look at the consumer products, which I think are really advanced compared to the enterprise products in this, so the Alexa and the Siri and all of this stuff, they're okay. They've kind of gone from bad to okay. And when they're really good, I think us in the B2B side of things will be able to do interesting things with that kind of approach, but not now. Yeah. I just don't think that's the way to go. And the same thing with even transcription. Like you can definitely, using Google Voice and all kinds of things like that, get the transcription of a sales call and stuff like that. But what are you going to use? What are you going to do with those 5,000 words that you've captured? Like why? Like that's the worst outcome for me of having no notes is to have a massive amounts of notes that you're going to spend a lot of time sifting through to figure out what the truth is there. So that's one of the reasons why we're not doing that today. We want to condense that text into just the meaningful bits.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're looking at it from a different perspective, right? Because I think a lot of the tool vendors that are working with transcription, it's about using the text as a coaching tool, right? Again, back to this is what the top performer does. Based on these keywords, they have certain success rates, blah, blah, blah. This is what you should be doing. I don't think,
right.
Very few are sort of oriented toward that sort of real time. Hey, this is what you should be saying, Andy, at this point in time.
Right. Your phone is like buzzing. It's like really buzzing. You're like, oh, shoot. I'm saying the wrong, like, how is that going to work?
Yeah, I think that's raised an interesting point because I think one of the things I was sort of thinking as you're talking about how you sort of flip it, the technology a bit, so you're sort of controlling what gets to the person, to the sales rep, is, my suggestion for Spiro, a suggestion box is like, during sales calls, block everything, that's on the phone. No notifications, nothing can come through. Just turn the phone into a brick, while they're on the middle of a phone call or something. I think would be a great tool because this whole idea of being overwhelmed and that leads to distraction and people trying to multitask, which leads to a poor outcome for a sales call.
Right. Yeah, I always wonder, like on the news shows when like the guy's got the earphone in, he's hearing from the producer and reading the script, and like that's some skill to be able to take in information and be live, with a prospect or on the air or something like that and make that happen. I'm not looking forward to that day when that's my expectation.
Yeah, well, I do think you're right. Absolutely. I mean, it's like trying to walk and rub your stomach and pat your head at the same time. I mean, it's not easy, I can imagine. So yeah, I can't, and I think it's hard enough for salespeople right now is just the temptation to look at their phone or do something else while they're on a different call with a customer. Yeah, it'd be great to help them with this problem of overwhelm,
Right.
and be a little more forceful with it. So,
I mean, one of the reports that I read by the guys at Nucleus Research, I don't know if you know them, they were a Boston research firm. They wrote a paper on dark cockpit CRM, which I thought was great. And this goes back a couple of years, but it's basically like exactly what you said, shutting off everything, but just highlighting the key bits of information that you need in the moment.
Right.
And that's one of the things that we strive to in Spiro is limiting the data, like purposefully.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can only have so much data available to you. And that theoretically should make you able to focus more. And platforms like Salesforce, which are great because they're so extensible, this community of Salesforce developers just adds so many things into it. You know what I mean? That just reviewing an opportunity record, for example, might be a 20-minute exercise versus just being able to pick up the phone and bang, make a call,
Right. Well, I think though this community of Salesforce developers, though, what they, cagey move on the part of Salesforce is to turn them loose because, they are the ones that really, create the value for Salesforce. Right. I mean, Salesforce, you could arguably say, has very little value absent many of these outside external developers because this is how people are getting the data into this, what is essentially now just a database.
Exactly, with a GUI from 1999 or whatever. But who's keeping track?
Which most people don't need to use anymore because they've got these other apps that are interfaced with it and input the data.
Yeah, no, it's a beautiful thing they've built, but I don't know how well it works for individual salespeople.
It doesn't. These other apps do, right? I mean,
yeah.
I for that company that said that their strategic initiative for 2017 was to put in Salesforce. Or put in a CRM, and I asked, well, which one did you choose? And I said, we chose Salesforce. And so I asked him, I said, well, what's it going to look like? I mean, what other apps are you going to use? What's your sales team going to use? And started going, no, it's just going to use like a vanilla instance of Salesforce. And I thought, oh, wow. Good luck.
Yeah, let me know how that goes.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, I haven't checked back with them. I should. So, well, good. Adam, it's been great talking to you again. Tell folks how they can find out more about Spiro and maybe give the product a try.
Sure. Well, you can find out more information at spiro.ai. That's spiro.ai. I'll tell you a funny story for anybody who's thinking about having a business with a .ai, because artificial intelligence,
sure.
Of course, it's also from the Caribbean nation of Aruba. Not Aruba, Antigua, which owns that domain space. And we went through procurement with a large financial services company. And one of the red flags they had was that we were based in the Caribbean because they looked at our domain.
You're keeping your cash stashed there.
Exactly. So it's, so if you're thinking about the AI, domain, just keep that in mind if financial services is your target market. But Spiro.ai, you can find out everything you need there as well as get in touch with us.
Excellent. Or maybe they thought you were like, some of these big multinational corporations that, had their, for tax reasons, had all sorts of shell companies set up down there.
I'm sure there's a lot of money to be made in that, but I think the hurricane really wiped those guys out. So.
There you go. Or they all went to the island of Jersey like Apple. So.
Exactly.
All right, Adam, great talking to you. And friends, thank you for spending this time with me today. Make sure you come back, join me for the next great episode of Accelerate. Until then, if you get a chance, really appreciate it. Go to iTunes, subscribe to this podcast, leave a review. We want to hear what we can do to make this an even better experience for you. So thanks again for joining me. Until next time, this is Andy Paul. Good selling, everyone.